As crazy as it sounds, Indiana is the underdog at Nebraska tonight. So, can they pull the upset?
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. It is the Locked On Hoosiers podcast. I'm your man, Jacob Goins. I appreciate you being here, making this your first listen or your first watch every single day. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Well, thank you so much for being here, and shout out to all of my everydayers, those of you that come back each and every day, Monday through Friday, bonus episodes on the weekends, truly making this your first spot every single day. Lots to get to on the show here for you on this Friday with more schedule reactions for Indiana football, how you can kind of break it into almost halves with the bye weeks and some of the tough road games and the home games Indiana has. Plus, Indiana's on the road at Nebraska. What would this win mean for the season, for the Big Ten standings? We'll look at that. But plain and simple, the question I pose to you, can Indiana upset Nebraska? And I know what you're thinking. There's no way Indiana's the upset here. We were just a top 25 team a couple of weeks ago. Well, yeah, we were until the battle for Atlantis happened. And let's be honest, we got exposed. We looked terrible in the battle for Atlantis. Did we pick it up at the end? Sure. Did we win our first Big Ten game? Pretty convincingly. Yeah, we did. But I think this betting line and this spread, according to our friends at FanDuel, it sits right around 3 to 4 points, depending on when that you look at this, in favor of Nebraska. And I think bettors are just picking against Mike Woodson in Indiana. I just think history is playing a major factor here, because look at what Indiana has done in recent memory when they go on the road in the Big Ten to a team that's halfway decent, good, or really good. It doesn't go well for us. And Nebraska is one of those teams. Now, am I completely sold on the Cornhuskers yet? No, I'm not. But I do think they have our number and have had it in recent years. Nebraska, you look at what they've done. They're 6-2 overall this season, right? A lot of their wins over Bethune, Fairleigh Dickinson, South Dakota, North Florida. Like, we're not talking anything crazy here. Their 2 losses were to St. Mary's, which is not typically a bad loss. That's typically a tournament team, is St. Mary's, and that was only by 3. But then they lost to Michigan State 89-52. Got the doors blown off of them in East Lansing. And that's the game that they're coming off of. And so what Nebraska do you get, right? Do you get a upset Nebraska who's looking for redemption? Or do you get a beat down Nebraska that just doesn't really care about this game? It is their Big Ten opener at home. It's on a Friday night. It's on Fox. It's on big time national television. I mean, you're talking a lot of eyes on this game for Indiana men's basketball against Nebraska. And we are the underdog on the road. Are we better than them? Yeah, I think we are. I think we're more talented. I think we're deeper. I think we're a better shooting team. I think we're a bigger team. And I just think we're more talented than they are overall. Better coached? I don't know. Now you're starting to lose a lot of fans when you start talking about the coaching ability. But just the guys that you're going to put on the floor, Indiana is a better team than Nebraska. We shouldn't have to defend that as hard as we do. And for Indiana, we'll get to what this game means coming up in just a little bit. Just your second Big Ten game of the season, and the same thing for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. And I think for this game, for the Hoosiers, you look at Nebraska and you think they're gettable, they're beatable. They've got a couple of dudes, sure, but nothing crazy. If you can stop Bryce Williams, the guy who scores 17 points a game, the one that they go to time and time again, he shoots 46% from the floor, almost 38% from 3, and 93% from the free throw line. This guy can play, and he can flat out shoot. And if you watch some of the film on Nebraska this year, he doesn't need a whole lot of airspace to let it go, and he can create his own shot. If you can stop him, you've got a really good chance. And I know we talked about the Gabe Cupps injury yesterday. Don't think that's really going to play a factor here for Indiana moving forward in the next several games. But you have to have good guard play, offensively and defensively. This is a Trey Galloway game. This is a Trey Galloway game. Not even so much offensively. I'm looking on the defensive end of the floor because he very well could be matched up with Nebraska's best player, or it could be Miles Rice. And if that's the case, he has proven himself in the last several games to be a pretty good defender and step up and accept that challenge of defending their point guard or just whoever their best guard may be. If Cannon Carlisle can continue to play well, maybe Bryson Tucker gets some more minutes after his best young performance in his career, Indiana should outmatch them with their guards. And then it's simple. You play to your strength. Go down low. Get it to Ballo. Get it to Reneau. Let McKenzie and Mbako eat on the three-point line. You have more talent than this team, man. And the fact that we have to stress about Nebraska in basketball is absurd. Go in and handle business. Go in and do what you're supposed to do and prove to them and prove to the Big Ten and prove to college basketball why this is offensive that we are the underdog here. Why it is so upsetting to us that we are the underdog. But here's the issue. We've had this discussion before. I've had this type of passionate argument in the past, and I've gotten burned. My everydayers and my long-timers, you know this. I've said this several times, and Indiana has burned me because you go on the road against Nebraska or Northwestern or Iowa when these teams aren't as good as they usually are, and you just show your you-know-what. You just don't play good, and you embarrass yourself on the national stage. If that happens, then I'll eat my words, and I'll get on here and we'll talk it out. But that shouldn't happen here. There is no Tominaga. He's not on this team anymore. He's gone. Indiana doesn't have to worry about him. You show up and play your game, and you're better than Nebraska. And you'll pull the upset according to the bettors in Las Vegas, and you can move to 2-0 in Big Ten play. What would that mean for us? What would that mean for the standings? And what would it mean for the rest of the year for Indiana? We're talking about that coming up next right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by Game Time. It's my go-to ticketing app for any event that I want to go to. Sports, music, comedy, theater, you name it, they have got it. And I love their new feature, man. We've talked a lot about it here on the show. And Game Time Picks. You get on and you look for whatever event. Indiana basketball, college football playoff, Super Bowl, NFL Sunday, whatever the case may be. And you look at hundreds, if not thousands of different tickets, and you just don't know which one you want, which one has the best price, the best view. You just are kind of overwhelmed. Game Time Picks takes all of that away. They're going to take out all the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste your time searching through all of those options. And with their lowest price guarantee, if it's not the best price, they're going to credit you 110% of the difference. So what are you waiting for? Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time Picks. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. That's Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Welcome back into Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much for being here, and shout out to all of my everydayers. If you are listening on whatever audio platform, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, however you listen to the show every day, thank you so much for doing that. Be sure that you are subscribed if it's an option. Have those notifications turned on. Don't want you to miss any extra content that we put out here on Locked On Hoosiers. And for those of you who are watching on the YouTube, right, on the YouTube video, each and every day, Be sure that you are liking the videos. That helps us out tremendously. Be sure you hit the thumbs up on that. Be sure you comment down below. Should Indiana be the underdog in this game against Nebraska? And do you have confidence that we go in and win this game? Do we handle business? Can we play like we did against Minnesota in our previous Big Ten matchup? Let me know in the YouTube comments. And then, if you have not already, I need you to help me out. We're pushing for 4,000 subscribers before the turn of the new year. We are so close to 3,900. We're making the push as we speak. We're gaining multiple subscribers a day, dozens by the day, and I need you to help us out. So be sure that you hit the subscribe button if you have not already. Really appreciate you being here and a part of Locked On Hoosiers. Indiana on the road for the first time in Big Ten play, and we begin asking the question, okay, if we get this win, right, what if we win? Well, I think it would show in our first road game of the season that we should be proud of this team, that we should be excited for this team, that we hopefully have overcome some of those obstacles that this team continued to trip over time and time again last year, right? This team struggled mightily in these types of games. Friday nights on the road, weather's cold outside, you get out of Bloomington and things just went awry. And I feel like for this squad, it's important to get off to a hot start. In any game, yes, but definitely this game when you're on the road for the first time this season. Not your first game outside of Assembly Hall. Of course, we've had some of the neutral site contests, but your first true road game of the year, it's not easy. And this team has got to find a way to overcome the things they could not overcome last year, which was digging yourself deep holes, going on 4 or 5 minute scoring droughts, and letting teams like Nebraska hit 3 after 3 after 3. If you do that, you're doomed, and you're going to get beat by 20, and there's going to be a lot of happy bettors out in Las Vegas. You can't do that in this game tonight. I think you have to hammer home Oumar, Ballo, Malik, Reneau. They have to play two-man game basketball, defend without fouling, and pressure Nebraska and make them foul you. Oumar Ballo has proven that he's one of the best free throw shooting big men in the country. What was he, 8 for 11 the other day against Minnesota? That's incredible for him, especially at his size. And I think his confidence is really starting to shine through. And Malik Reneau, man, we know what he can do if he's on the floor. But if he's sitting on the bench and watching, Indiana's in trouble. I told you earlier in the week that I believe that is your more consistent lineup, right? With the bigger guys on the floor. Those are the ones you can get down low, get your buckets, get to the line, have a good defense out there. But in a game like this, I'd love to see the smaller lineup. I would love to see Luke Goody, Mackenzie Mbako, Cannon Carlisle. Give me those guys on the floor at the same time, and let's see this team flat out run. Right? You could play Rice, Carlisle, Galloway, Goody, and Mbako, or maybe flip Mbako and Goody. I'm talking a small lineup here, and just let them run. Get the stop and take off. Heck, even on a make, get the ball and take off. Soon as it comes through the net, grab it, step out of bounds, throw it ahead, and let's go. I think this Indiana team is more dangerous with that lineup on the floor because not many people can stop it. And I think you've seen that when they're feeling it and they're on, Rice can knock down shots, Galloway can knock down shots, Carlisle can knock down shots if he played like he did in the last couple of games. And then you've got Mackenzie Mbako, who's the best shooter on the team, and Luke Goody, who could become the best shooter on the team. It's not a lineup you play for 15, 20 minutes of the game, but I think 8, 10, 12, yeah, absolutely. Especially when Ballo and Reneau need some minutes to get a rest, or if they do end up in foul trouble, or whatever the case may be. You've got the depth now, if you're Mike Woodson, to play different options rather than having your starting 5, subbing 4 of them out, letting your point guard stay, bringing 4 off the bench, letting them play, and just subbing out the same 4 or 5 guys every time. That's not going to get it done. That's old school, man. You don't have to do that anymore, and you've got to score to win. Sounds stupid, right? Tell that to Mike Woodson in Indiana. You've got to get this thing off and running early and often, especially on the road at Nebraska. Now, what would this win mean? Well, it would mean you're 2-0 in Big Ten play, which would be nice. You'd also have some confidence to wrap up with Chattanooga and with Winthrop on December 29th. And then you would get started with the rest of your Big Ten schedule, which, let me remind you, is Rutgers at home. Don't let that record fool you. They're one of the most talented teams in all of college basketball. You go on the road at Penn State. You welcome in USC. That is Southern Cal. You go on the road at Iowa. Your next two after that, Illinois at home and at Ohio State. Not bad. Very, very manageable for a Big Ten conference that I think is underperformed, underwhelmed so far this season. And you could throw Indiana in that category, a team we were top 15. And then Atlantis happened, and we're having to kind of dig ourselves out of that hole. You look at some of the updated standings. This is as of the recording, right? Going into Friday, UCLA, Michigan, Michigan State are all 2-0 in conference play. Michigan had a tough one the other night against Arkansas. You've got Indiana. We're just the 1-0. We've only played the one Big Ten game. Everybody else, yes, everybody else has a loss in this conference already. There are 4 teams out of 18 that are undefeated, and we're just 2 games in. I'm afraid, though, that the Big Ten is going to eat itself alive in a negative way, where you're going to have a lot of bubble teams, to say it in using March Madness terms, NCAA tournament terms. You're going to have a lot of bubble teams that beat up on each other. The Marylands, Iowas, Northwestern, Rutgers, USC, Nebraskas, Wisconsins. I mean, you're going to have some of these squads that are probably pretty good. And if they didn't play in a competitive Big Ten, they would be okay. But this conference has got to find a way to have some separation, have some tiers, if you will, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and have some of that mixture in there so we have some separation. For Indiana, you got to get to the top and stay at the top. And the best way to do that is to get started with a 2-0 start in Big Ten play, and you can do that with a road win tonight at Nebraska to start 2-0 in your conference season. All right, final segment coming up on Locked On Hoosiers. Going to the football side of things, want to dive a little bit deeper into that 2025 schedule because the bye weeks are in a weird spot, and it almost separates it into just 2 halves rather than thirds like we've seen in other places. We'll have that coming up for you next in the final segment right here on Locked On Hoosiers. Today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers is brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet just $5 and they're going to give you $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Did you jump on Thursday Night Football last night, Rams and Niners? You could have. If you did, you could have won $150 in bonus bets with FanDuel. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Final segment on Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you again for being here, and shout out to all my everydayers. Appreciate you. If you're just now getting into the rotation, or maybe it's your first time, really appreciate you being here, audio and video. Be sure you're liking it, commenting, subscribing, however you help this show, besides just being here every day. Really, really do appreciate you and your support. I was looking at the football schedule again last night, the 2025 football schedule that was released for Indiana, and we had some reactions to it in these week's episodes, and I just can't help but looking at the schedule and thinking how manageable it is. Even with the road games at Penn State and Oregon, I just think it's another winnable, attackable schedule. And the bye weeks are really interesting to me because, right, this is the second season now going into 2025 where you have 2 bye weeks rather than just the 1. And for Indiana, they're not bad. The first one is great. I love where the first one is, right? You play your first 5 games, Old Dominion, Kennesaw State, Indiana State. Snore, right? That's boring. I hate those 3 games being back to back to back to start the season, but it is what it is. They don't ask me when making the schedule. You then play Illinois at home. So that's 4 straight home games inside of Memorial Stadium before you go on the road to Iowa. Not bad. I think if everything comes to fruition like we think it will, we expect 5-0 in that stretch. And that's not a crazy thing to say. You then take a bye week in the first weekend of October on October 4th before you go to Eugene. Your first road game of the year is arguably the toughest road game in the Big Ten when you play the Ducks in Oregon. But you couldn't have hand-placed a bye week better for Indiana than after a manageable 5-game stretch, take a bye, take a week, get healthy, get right, and get prepared to take on what will most likely be a top 10, top 5 team in the country in Oregon at their house. You play that game, right? So you have a 5-game stretch, a bye week, and then you have a 6-game stretch. Now, here's where it starts to get a little dicey. First bye week, I'm cool with. I wish the second bye week would have been moved up a little bit. Maybe even 2 games to split this up in 5, 4, and 3 rather than 5, 6, and 1. That's tough, man. 6 games in a row with no off weeks at all is really, really difficult. And not just 6 games, 6 tough games, I would say. At Oregon, home for Michigan State, home for UCLA, at Maryland, at Penn State, and home for Wisconsin. That's not easy. With 2 back-to-back road games in there as well, that's not easy. So 6 games in a row, then you take that second bye week before the final game of the year on the road at Purdue. I don't know. No disrespect to Purdue. I don't expect them to be all that much better next year. Yes, they've got a new coach and they're going to have a new staff and new players, but a road game at Purdue as of right now just doesn't really scare me. You would hope that that bye week, the second one anyway, would be a double preparation for Big Ten championship game, college football playoff, whatever the case may be. Said that yesterday, and I still believe that to be the case. I just wish that one would have been moved up a little bit, but it is what it is. Your toughest games, clearly, at Oregon and at Penn State. Wisconsin at home is no sleeper. Maryland on the road is no sleeper, and neither is Michigan State coming here as well. That's a tough game that Indiana has to play. And if Purdue does shock us and becomes good, you've got to end at their house as well. So overall, the start is solid. You've got to take advantage because the meat of this sandwich of the schedule is pretty brutal. And if Indiana can survive 1, 2, maybe even 3 losses, I don't know if we can get 3 losses and get to a playoff again, but 2 losses with that schedule, and you're a playoff team in 2025. I believe that, and I hope that it comes to fruition. We'll see if that's the case. I'm excited for 2025, but I'm going to continue to say this. By no means are we wishing away the 2024 season and hopefully carrying that into 2025 with an extended run in the college football playoff. All right, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Hoosiers. Thank you so much again for being here. Enjoy the game tonight, Indiana and Nebraska. I've got the Hoosiers winning. I think we go in. I think we control this. I think we command it, and we pull away in the final 8 to 10 minutes of the game. I want to hear and see your score predictions down below. Be sure you drop those in the YouTube comments. And again, like, comment, and subscribe. It's the best things that you can do on the YouTube side, and be sure that you are following us on your audio platforms as well, okay? Have a great weekend. We're back on Monday, Hoosier fans. So until then, stay safe, and I'll talk to you later.